All right, good morning from the Seminole County Emergency Operations Center. My name is Alan Harris. I'm the emergency manager here for Seminole County. Seminole County has been preparing for the potential of Hurricane Nicole since last Saturday. We always plan for the worst and hope for the best, so we have been preparing for a landfalling hurricane, and those preparations continue even this morning. Crews have been out looking at storm drains. We've topped off generators, stage utility, public works and first response crews, shelter crews, set up the shelters yesterday and opened the shelters this morning in preparations for individuals that may want to come to the emergency shelters during the height of the storm. Our first response activities will be talked briefly in just a little bit from Fire Chief Kinley and Sheriff Lima. They're going to tell you a little bit more about what first response activities are in place right now for response to the potential of hurricane or tropical storm Nicole coming over Seminole County. Of course, we're dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, which is making this a little bit more complex. On Monday, we opened up sandbag operations, knowing that this will be a flood event, regardless if we get strong winds or not. This will be a flood event, as we are already in minor flood stage along the St. Johns River. Over 30,500 sandbags have been given out in just the last few days. Those sandbag locations will close today at noon. Conditions are forecasted to continue to deteriorate through the day. So, as I mentioned, we opened up emergency shelters this morning, as we will need a little time to help people that have transportation needs to get to the emergency shelters. Our strongest winds and rains here in Seminole County should be arriving very late tonight and into very, very early in the morning, so it will be dark when we see the worst parts of this particular storm. As I mentioned, we did open the shelters. We issued a voluntary evacuation this morning at 10 a.m. The voluntary evacuation is for mobile and manufactured homes, low-lying, flood-prone areas, as some areas are still saturated with water, some roadways still have water on them, and then individuals with special needs, those individuals that may need some additional assistance during the event, where home health care and other types of services may not be able to get to their house. So that's for those individuals. That a voluntary evacuation is issued at the same exact time we open emergency shelters. So we have opened up 2 emergency shelters with some additional on standby, but those 2 shelters are Bentley Elementary School, which is in Sanford. Bentley Elementary is a pet-friendly shelter with special needs, and Lawton Childs Middle School in Oviedo, that is a general population shelter, also pet-friendly. I can't stress enough that shelters are the place of last resort, so if you have a friend or family member in the community that lives in the concrete masonry block home, that is obviously the best place to go. It's more comfortable environment with your friends and family, but if you have no place to go, please consider an emergency shelter. When it comes to emergency shelter, please remember to bring medications, special dietary needs, bedding, clothing, toiletry, things like that. We do not provide cots at emergency shelters during the storm. We simply just do not have cots enough for the amount of people that may show up. Post-storm and recovery sheltering, we can look to prepare to have cots. So if you have cots, please bring those with you, sleeping bags, things like that. I want to thank our partners, Florida Department of Health with our special needs shelter, Seminole County Public Schools, which helps to staff our shelters, and of course the Sheriff's Office for providing security and safety at each one of our emergency shelters. Flooding continues to be a very big concern of ours with this particular event. Some of the creeks and rivers have actually changed during Hurricane Ian, so you can actually see the flow of the water has adjusted due to sediment moving. There are trees in the waterways, so localized flooding is a potential. In addition, new guidance along the St. Johns River shows that Lake Monroe and Lake Harney, as well as Lake Jessup, while they're in currently moderate flood stage, could potentially get into moderate stage. And as folks around here in Seminole County know, that normally happens about a week after the event. So we'll have the localized flooding with the initial pass, and then as those tributaries feed into the St. Johns River, the flood waters along Lake Monroe and Harney are due to come up. This is not going to go into major flood stage. It won't be at the levels it was before, but it will potentially get into moderate flood stage. So people that have just had water exit their homes, it is important for those folks to take special precautions. Debris can also cause obstructions and prevent water from flowing effectively. So if you have debris in front of your home that may block a storm drain or the flow of water, we are asking people to move that slightly so it does not do that, does not collect in the storm drains. And of course, we have suspended all tipping fees. So if you are able to take your vegetated debris or construction debris to the landfill, you can do that free of charge until 3 p.m. today, when we will be closing the landfill. And we also will be closing the central transfer station at that time. Garbage collection will also cease at 3 p.m. today. So please, if you have trash containers, recycling containers out, please bring them in at 3 o'clock, as the conditions will deteriorate as we get into the evening hours. Our debris haulers, most of those folks are from out of state. Some of them are in state, but they have ceased operations today. And they are getting their equipment in safe locations so that they can deploy out post-storm. Our Citizens Information Line is available. If you need transportation assistance to the emergency shelter, we can provide transportation assistance. Or if you simply have a general question about anything related to Tropical Storm Nicole or Hurricane Ian, you can call our Citizens Information Hotline at 407-665-0000. Again, 407-665-0000. Or our website, prepareseminole.org. Now I'd like to turn it over to Seminole County Fire Chief Matt Kinley for some additional information.
Thank you, Alan. Good morning. As always, your Seminole County Fire Department is ready to serve. But as Emergency Manager Alan Harris stressed, we are strongly encouraging individuals in mobile, manufactured homes and low-lying, flood-prone homes to evacuate. SCFD is preparing. We have prepared. We've staffed up specialty units throughout the county to include our high water vehicles, just in case of any flooding or flash flooding. We're also continuing to conduct area surveys to identify and mitigate any hazards that might impede our response. Always have these safety notes when it comes to flooding. Anytime you come to a flooded area, turn around, don't drown. Do not attempt to cross flowing water. As little as 6 inches can knock you off your feet. And beware of power lines and flood waters. That's the second leading cause of electrocution during these, or of death during these type of events, is electrocution. If and when the power begins to go out, remember the generator safety tips. Keep your generator at least 25 feet away from your home. Keep the exhaust pointed away from any openings of windows, doors, garage doors. Call 911 if you have any odors of gas. We can come out and check and make sure that there's not a hazard. Don't use any indoor cooking equipment, grills inside your home. Those do cause fires. If when the power goes out, you were using your stove, please turn it off. Please do not put anything on top of your stove. This last event, we had a couple of fires where when the power came back on, the stove turned on and started a fire, got up in the cabinets. Luckily, we were able to put them out and we didn't have any loss of life. Again, these are just some basic tips from the fire department. If you want some more robust tips, go to prepareseminole.org. There's a lot of information there. We appreciate your assistance in keeping everyone safe. Now I'd like to turn it over to Sheriff Dennis Lima.
Thank you, Chief, and good morning, everyone. Great to see you again. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office and all Seminole County municipal policing agencies, the city police departments, stand at the ready. As I have said before during these news conferences, these operations is what we prepare for all year long. And of course, we have recent experience with Hurricane Ian. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office and all police departments remain a 24-hour operation. Typically what happens during times like this is we increase our staffing of those patrol units on the road, either in the Sheriff's Office or neighboring city agencies. That occurs largely because when the schools are closed, when the courts close down, there's a lot of additional deputy sheriffs that can help offset and patrol and take care of storm-related functions as well. So you'll see more visible presence of law enforcement throughout Seminole County as this storm approaches and is here. I can't stress enough the importance of staying off the road. I have been incredibly proud of our community, of their ability to self-regulate. A lot of businesses during Ian closed down because they were looking for the best interest of their customers and their employees, and I hope that many businesses do the same with this. Again, stay off the roads because that helps first responders get in and out and respond to situations. It's very likely that you'll see large tactical-looking vehicles with Sheriff's Office striping on the side of those vehicles. We do that because we respond to calls for service as long as we possibly can when the conditions are safe to do so. And those heavy vehicles not only provide us with additional safety and security as we're responding to calls in high wind situations. What we've seen with the flooding in Seminole County, which is incredibly unique, is to be able to get in there and help rescue people that are in those flood-prone areas. Inevitably, when we have a storm, when we have loss of power, people come up to intersections that have lost power. We have a lot of our intersections that are on generator backup power that is locked and tied to posts that we track, but inevitably there'll be intersections that are completely dark and black as soon as we lose power. Every time we see a storm and every time I'm out there patrolling, as well as our deputies, we see people who don't know how to respond to those situations. They come flying through, so please treat every traffic signal that is out as a four-way stop. Stop, be incredibly cautious, and be mindful, because sometimes without that light sitting in front of you, it's hard to remember where you're at. Our deputy sheriffs will be there staffing shelters. The shelters that are open, there'll be multiple deputy sheriffs that are there. You'll be incredibly safe at those locations. And those deputy sheriffs and or police officers are there not only to provide assistance while you're in the shelter, but if there's something going on in your neighborhood community, let those police officers and deputies be your avenue to what's happening on the outside, as well as your media sources. So go to them. They'll make sure that you're as comfortable as possible during those times. If you're in flood-prone areas and you're making the decision to evacuate, like we got a lot of places that are still flooded out, right? Some people's homes are not ready to get back into. So if you should make the decision to leave your home, we understand how incredibly important of a decision that is, and it could potentially make you feel vulnerable. So what we've done is we've increased the patrol presence in those particular flood-prone areas, the areas that we feel people may consider evacuating, whether it's manufactured homes or mobile home communities. And we've also added the additional element of an anti-crime unit. Anti-crime unit is deputy sheriffs and police officers that look like the general public. They're wearing civilian clothing. They're driving unmarked vehicles, so we have those vehicles in and out to provide additional increased surveillance of those communities where people may be leaving their homes and leaving their properties. Look, not to over-sensationalize it, but there is increased penalties for people who are committing crimes during states of emergency, and we will be as aggressive as we possibly can with the prosecution of those individuals that try to take advantage of this situation. I spoke a little bit about every time you do this, people start asking questions, whether it's a live feed, is there going to be curfews? Look, there is no planned curfew in Seminole County right now. And as storms like this progress, Alan Harris, myself, the chief of police, many other people come together and sit and discuss. The reason why we did not have any curfews here in Seminole County during Ian is because there was no need for that. When people self-regulate, they're responsible, and it provides safety for our first responders to get to and from calls for service. There's no need for that. So there is no plans for that right now. If you see price gouging, there is a report, a statewide report through the Attorney General's office. Please call in and make that report. We'll make sure that we have published that on some of our sheriff's office stuff, but that's 1-866-9-NO-SCAM. And what price gouging is people who are inflating the price of woods or tarps or gasoline, those items that you would need in preparation in an emergency like we're doing. Make your final plans for your family. Our entire community will be here to work with you. Our communities heal when neighbors help neighbors. I think that's so incredibly important. Be mindful that there are parts of our Seminole County community that have not recovered. So Lake Harney, Lake Monroe, Lake Jessup, the areas along the St. Johns River. We will be extra mindful to provide you with the help, the service, and the assistance that you need during and throughout, and as we evaluate what happens with the water over the next 5, 6, 7 days, right? We know here in Seminole County with the St. Johns River flowing north, a lot of that comes from the runoff of neighboring counties to the south of us up into Seminole County. So we'll be there to provide you any help and any assistance, and we will keep you informed through Alan Harris and his team and these news conferences and our partners in the media to make sure that you don't have to go out there and see what's going on. There'll be plenty of coverage. There'll be plenty of cameras that are out there that are going in and about documenting the storm. So stay at home, stay off the roads, and help us once again self-regulate.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Any questions?
Alan, when you talk about moderate flooding, what we're expecting, can you put that into kind of terms as far as what we have seen in the past? I mean, for people who live along Lake Harney or even in the Riverwalk area, essentially?
Sure. So some of the roadways, as I mentioned, still have water on those. So those that have just emptied off, we're talking about water back on those roadways. The fire department's done a great job about marking the roadways, so those higher profile vehicles can drive. The sheriff's office did that, and the fire department, but so they can get in and out on the roadways safely. But we could see some water on the roadways. Some homes, just last week, we had 80 homes with water still inside of them. A month and a couple weeks later after Hurricane Ian. Some of those are just drying out now. What we're talking about is inches of water, not feet, not like we saw in Ian, but inches of water moving towards those homes again. Hopefully those individuals have gotten sandbags. If they haven't, they have until noon today to get some sandbags, place it around their home. Hopefully that will protect them from the inches of water that potentially could come into their house if they don't protect their home.
And that's for similar areas as last time.
That's all along the St. Johns River. What's the anomaly, of course, this particular event is what is the debris going to do in Little Wekiva, in Gee Creek, and Howell Creek, and quite frankly, we don't know the answer to that. I had a conversation with the hydrologist in the National Weather Service last night, and there isn't any modeling that can show that type of thing. Because we don't know, we haven't been able to go through every creek, and it's just not possible because there's so many trees down. The river is, as I mentioned, Howell Creek is actually adjusted, so you can actually see where the sediment has come up and has actually shifted course after Hurricane Ian. What is that going to do to the flow? We don't know that right now.
So meaning that the people who didn't necessarily have flooding last time could potentially have this time because of the changes.
It could get close to homes just like it did last time. I'm not saying that it's going to go into homes along Gee Creek or Howell Creek or anything like that, but it certainly will get into their yards and close to their homes. In some cases, that's a potential, yes.
Alan, you've been making the plea for people with yard debris and stuff to bring it to the landfill. Do you guys keep track if anybody is bringing the stuff in there, and how much have you seen, or have you seen very little or a lot?
We do keep track of that. I'd have to answer that question after I need to get those numbers, exactly how many we've waived.
What about the Little Wekiva area? Is there concern there after Ian?
Yeah, so Little Wekiva right now is below action stage, but it does look, there's a couple models that shows it gets into the minor, even potentially the moderate flood stage. So it just, again, depends on what the debris looks like in the waterway. That's number one. And then where those rain bands line up. It's a little bit favorable for us to go south as far as wind, but it's not as favorable for it to go south as far as rain. That means it's going to stick with us for a little bit longer, which means that we could see a little bit additional rain. So, 6 to 8 inches of rain is not what we wanted. 2 to 3 inches of rain we didn't want either, but that would have been better for us. So it just depends on where those rain bands line up. And as the sheriff mentioned, it also depends on where it is south of us, because it's got to come through the Little Wekiva, it's got to come through Little Econ and Big Econ and Gee Creek to get to the St. Johns River, which eventually gets it out to the Atlantic Ocean.
Has there been any reports of flooding so far today?
Just localized, nothing major, and nothing where it's come in any homes or anything like that. All right, well, thank you so much. We are going to do a Spanish translation. I'd like to ask Bob Cortez from the Sheriff's Office to come up and do that for us. Thank you, Bob, for doing that. Appreciate it.
Buenos días a todos. Aquí un resumen en español de lo que la tormenta tropical Nicole, de parte del director de emergencia de Alan Harris. El condado de Seminole ha estado en preparación para la posibilidad de un huracán desde el sábado pasado. Nuestros equipos están preparados con generadores y equipos de emergencia coordinados con las ciudades y el estado listo para responder. Se han despachado más de 30.500 bolsas de arena desde los pasados 3 días. Las condiciones continúan a empeorarse y deteriorarse durante el día en espera de que la tormenta llegue al estado. Desde ayer se han habido algunas ráfagas de lluvia que están trayendo un poquito de inundaciones en algunos de nuestros ríos. Se espera que continúe la lluvia, y como hay algunos de nuestros ríos y nuestros canales que están obstruidos desde el huracán Ian, puede ser que haya inundaciones. Los lagos de Lake Monroe y Lake Harney se mantienen en inundaciones de menor posibilidad, pero puede continuar a deteriorarse en la semana que viene. Se le pide a los residentes que se mantengan, que no bloqueen los desagües, ni tampoco con los árboles que se han caído del huracán Ian. Todavía se continúan sacando las basuras, pero a las 3 de la tarde de hoy van a descontinuar el recogido de basura. Por favor, asegure lo que tengan antes de las 3. Toda la información se puede continuar yendo a la página del condado de prepareseminole.org para más información. También tenemos el jefe de bomberos del condado de Seminole, donde da su actualización, donde están dando evacuaciones voluntarias en áreas de peligro, en áreas de las residencias móviles y también en áreas donde han habido inundación. Están pidiendo cautela con las aguas crecientes y también si ven algunos cables de alumbrado que están en el piso. Los bomberos también están pidiendo cautela a los residentes cuando se va la luz con los generadores, que sean en áreas de ventilación y que no se use dentro de los hogares. Tampoco usen equipos de calentador como de barbecue dentro de la casa. También le pide que apague todos los enseres, incluyendo las estufas, si se le va la luz. Los servicios de bomberos estarán listos para servir a los residentes en momentos de llamado durante el huracán. También tenemos una actualización del alguacil del condado de Seminole, de Sheriff Lima. La oficina del condado del alguacil de Sheriff y los oficiales de las ciudades locales están listos para servir 24 horas al día, 7 días a la semana, también durante las tormentas. Está pidiendo que mantengan fuera de las carreteras durante la tormenta y aguarden en sus casas durante la tormenta. Aunque no hay toque de queda, se haya implementado en el condado, se le está pidiendo a las personas que se mantengan dentro de sus hogares durante la tormenta para que no estén en peligro ni tampoco pongan a los oficiales en peligro. Para aquellos que están buscando evacuación de sus lugares, pueden hacerlo y en las áreas donde están inundadas se le están asignando más oficiales para combatir crímenes en esas áreas. Si ves una intersección donde no hay luz, trate esa intersección como un par de 4 lados. Algunas intersecciones van a tener generadores, pero aquellos que no lo tienen, tenga con cautela. Y entonces, si ves algún abuso en el alza de precio en cuestión de combustible o equipos de necesidades, pueden llamar al 1-866-9-NOSCAM para reportarlo. Que tengan en cuenta que todavía hay muchas áreas del condado que están bajo agua, que pueden empezar a deteriorarse durante la tormenta. Mantengan cautela, mantengan sus hogares y entonces si cualquier cosa pueden llamar al oficial, pueden llamar al 911 para cualquier duda. Y con eso resumen en español. Muchas gracias.
You guys should have, Bobby should have the shelter view link too, if you guys need anything else, let us know.